All right, fight fans. It was Leigh Wood over Mike Conlan in a very exciting fight with a 12th round knockout. Let's get to the pros and the cons. Let's start with Mike Conlan first. I like the fact that Mike had his offense and his defense working at the same time. What I'm saying is that Mike did a good job throwing out the jab. He did a good job with the right hook. He did a good job throwing the looping left hand, and he did great body work. I like the fact that in the first round, he started out with looking down at the body, moving to his right just a little, and throwing a straight left to the body. He was catching Leigh with that shot a lot, especially in the first round, and you could tell that was part of his game plan to break Leigh down, to tire him out maybe in the later rounds. He did a good job throwing the right hook to the body. He did a good job throwing a quick left uppercut every time Leigh would come in, because Leigh was very front foot heavy. As for the cons, the only con I have for Mike Conlan is he leaned against the ropes way too much. Starting around the 7th round, he did a lot of leaning against the ropes and taking shots that he really didn't need to take. Yes, he was still slipping some of those shots, but he still was taking too many shots that he didn't have to take. And he also was taking shots to the body, leaning on the ropes like that. As for Leigh Wood, the pros would be, I think that Leigh was very tough in there. That knockdown in the first round was not a flash knockdown. It was a hard knockdown. And hey, he got up from it. Now, he was a little wobbly for the next few rounds, but I give him credit for being tough. I think that he stayed on the front foot a lot because he wanted to throw hard shots on Mike Conlan. I don't know if he was thinking that's the only way he could win or that was his strategy to win, but he did some decent work on the front foot. Now, that brings me to the cons. Yes, I said it was a pro that he leaned on his front foot to throw big shots, but it also was a con because Mike Conlan almost couldn't miss, and I think it had a lot to do with the fact that Leigh was so front foot heavy. Another con for Leigh would be no head movement. He basically was a punching bag in there, and you could tell by the way his face looked at the end of the fight that he had no head movement, and Leigh almost could not miss him, whether it was to the body or to the head. Let's talk about the fight a little bit. It was an action-packed fight pretty much from the 1st to the 12th round, and it was a skilled fight. It wasn't a slugfest. By slugfest, I mean a fight where two guys are just pin their feet in the middle of the ring and just hit each other until somebody drops. No, this fight has skill to it. They were throwing hard shots, but you notice that Mike Conlan was still slipping a lot of those shots, ducking, slipping a lot of those shots. Leigh Wood, although he had no head movement, he was taking a lot of those shots. So it was a lot of good skill in there. We get to the 9th round. We had a knockdown in the first round. In the 9th round, Leigh Wood's turn comes where he knocks Mike Conlan down. Now, yes, it could have been a little controversial because it was a slip and a shot at the same time. But the truth is, if you happen to land a shot while a guy is slipping, you got to count that as a knockdown. Mike gets up, he recovers. We get to the 12th round, and I think that Mike made a mistake by turning it into a slugfest. I think that if he would have just got on his feet like he did in the earlier rounds, kept slipping punches, popping with the jab, he would have easily won the fight. But yet instead, he gets into a little slug fight, and it goes back to what I said earlier. He comes up with the con that I have for him, leaning against the ropes. He laid against the ropes, and Leigh threw a quick right hand. It was so quick that I had to watch the replay to see what the shot was that hurt Mike. Mike was out with that shot because his arms immediately dropped and he already started slipping out of the ring, and then Lee's shoe shining, he fell out of the ring, and that was the end of the fight. So now where do we go from here? Let's start with Mike Conlan. First of all, we pray that Mike Conlan is okay. We pray that his health is good and one day he'll get back in the ring and fight again. As for Leigh Wood, there's a couple of fights out there. Eddie Hearn mentioned Leo Santa Cruz getting a fight with the number one guy in the division. He mentioned who was it? Kiko Martinez and Josh Warrington in a couple of weeks, and that maybe one of those fights could come up. But Eddie Hearn was really more concentrating on Mike Conlan, saying that he really didn't want to focus too much on celebrating and talking about the future. Let's see how Mike is doing, and we'll move on from there. Now, what do you want to see? Do you want to see maybe Leigh Wood fight one of those four, or maybe would you like to see him fight Mike Conlan again? If Mike Conlan recovers, and I'm sure he will, would you like to see him, once he gets his strength back and gets his health back, maybe see those guys running back and see what happens in the rematch? But tell me what you thought about the fight. What do you want to see happen from here? Did you enjoy it? If you haven't already, like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so we can keep talking boxing, and give me your comments. Other than that, fight fans, that's all I got. I'll let y'all later.